Imagine you're walking along a deserted beach. With each step you take, your footprints mark the sand. But when you look back, you notice the waves gradually washing away every trace you left behind. In the same way, many men pass through a woman's life without leaving a lasting impression. They come and go like the tide, without making an impact, without sparking curiosity, without creating that magnetic pull that makes her think about them constantly. The question remains, how do you become unforgettable? How do you make her miss you so intensely that she seeks out your presence almost instinctively? The answer goes far beyond the superficial seduction techniques you've probably heard about before. The secret lies in something much deeper and more transformative: the ancient principles of Stoicism combined with modern neuroscience. We're not talking about emotional manipulation or psychological games. We're talking about a genuine internal revolution that turns you into a magnetic, unforgettable presence. Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium more than 2,000 years ago, teaches us a fundamental truth that most men completely ignore. Real power doesn't lie in controlling external circumstances, but in mastering your internal responses. When applied to relationships, this principle changes the game entirely. Stop trying to control her behavior. Stop obsessing over what she might be thinking or feeling. Focus on the only factor you can truly control: yourself. When you stop being a man who constantly seeks external validation and becomes someone who finds value within, something extraordinary happens. You stop being just another face in the crowd and transform into a distinct, striking presence that provokes genuine curiosity and interest. It's like the difference between a shooting star and the moon. A shooting star may be bright and eye-catching for a brief moment, but then it disappears, without a trace. The moon, on the other hand, exerts its pull on the tides even when it's not visible, and it's always present in people's imaginations. The first step toward this transformation is to completely abandon the scarcity mindset that dominates so many men. This mindset is characterized by the constant fear of loss, chronic insecurity, and the need for approval. Ironically, these behaviors repel the very people you want to attract. Have you ever noticed how those who are desperate for attention end up receiving the least of it? It's no coincidence. It's the law of reverse attraction at work. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." In other words, your external reality, including how people respond to you, is a direct reflection of your internal world. If your mind is dominated by insecurity, fear, and desperation, that is exactly what you'll project to the world, no matter how hard you try to hide it. Now, imagine completely transforming your internal dialogue. Imagine replacing thoughts like, "Does she like me?" or "What can I do to impress her?" with much more powerful reflections like, "How can I become the best version of myself today?" or "What genuine value can I add to her life?" This shift in focus creates a completely different aura around you. It's like upgrading from a regular smartphone to the latest high-tech model. The difference is instantly noticeable. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics intuited. When you change your mental focus, you literally alter your brain's chemistry. Higher levels of dopamine and serotonin are released, which not only improves your internal emotional state, but also transforms your body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. All the nonverbal cues that communicate far more than words ever could. These are precisely the signals that trigger immediate interest and attraction. Let's be practical now. What do you need to do in the next 24 hours? To put this transformation into action so she feels your absence in a near-visceral way? The answer lies in a fundamental Stoic practice: strategic detachment. Don't confuse it with indifference or emotional coldness. Strategic detachment is the ability to be fully present and engaged when you're with her, yet remain emotionally independent when you're on your own. Think of strategic detachment like the practice of a virtuoso musician. When he's on stage, he gives his all, fully immersed in the performance, connected with the audience. But when the show ends, He doesn't obsess over the audience's reaction or beg for their approval. He moves on to the next commitment, the next project, the next creation. It's that combination of intense presence followed by calm absence that creates a sense of mystery and fascination. Over the next 24 hours, practice this conscious alternation. When you're with her, be 100% present. Look into her eyes, listen actively, ask thoughtful questions, show genuine interest. But once you say goodbye, detach completely. Don't send messages every 5 minutes. Don't keep checking if she viewed your latest post. Don't rearrange your plans in the hope of a chance meeting. Dive into your own interests, your own activities, your own world. This pattern creates a powerful neurological effect in her brain. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, works most intensely when there's an element of unpredictability. When you're constantly available, always seeking approval, her brain gets used to it. It's like consuming sugar every day. It quickly loses its appeal. But when you alternate between intense presence and calm absence, you form an unpredictable pattern that keeps dopamine levels high. Behavioral science backs this up through the principle of scarcity. We value more what we perceive as rare or hard to obtain. This isn't about childish mind games or pretending to be aloof. It's about genuinely valuing your time and energy. When you show that your life is full and meaningful independent of her, you automatically become more valuable in her eyes. Another key Stoic principle you need to apply is focusing on the present moment. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, taught that we should direct our full attention to what we can control in the here and now. Many men ruin potential relationships because they're always projecting into the future, always thinking about, where is this going? Or, what does she feel about me? Not only does this mindset create anxiety, it also projects insecurity. Over the next 24 hours, practice radical presence. When you're with her, be completely absorbed in the moment. Don't think about your next witty remark to impress her. Don't try to interpret every gesture or word she says. Just be there, fully. This kind of presence holds an indescribable magnetic power. It's like having a friend who, when they talk to you, makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. That quality is extremely rare and therefore extremely valuable. Now, let's address something many men ignore: strategic vulnerability. Stoicism is often misunderstood as a philosophy advocating the suppression of emotions. In reality, the i.e., Stoics supported not the elimination of emotions, but the wise control of them. This means that showing vulnerability, when done correctly, can be incredibly powerful. Strategic vulnerability means sharing genuine parts of who you are, your struggles, doubts, and insecurities, but always from a position of strength, never as a victim. It's the difference between saying, "I'm devastated because my last relationship ended and I don't know if I'll ever get over it," and "My last relationship was challenging and taught me a lot about myself. I'm still processing a few things, but I'm committed to my personal growth." This kind of strategic vulnerability creates a level of emotional connection that goes far beyond superficial physical attraction. When you share authentic parts of yourself, you create an intimacy few men can establish. And it's this intimacy that makes her think of you when you're not around. It's like planting a mental seed that continues to grow in your absence. Another fundamental aspect is what I call positive cognitive dissonance. Psychology tells us we experience discomfort when our expectations are challenged. If she's used to men who are predictable, who put her on a pedestal, who are always available, you create powerful cognitive dissonance by acting differently. I'm me. Not talking about being rude or neglectful. I'm talking about breaking patterns in a positive way. If every man she's dated has been desperate for her texts, you can establish a more sporadic but far more meaningful pattern of communication. Instead of sending good morning every day, occasionally send a message that genuinely shows you remembered something she mentioned. "I found this article about that author you mentioned and thought of you." This type of high-value communication combined with strategic periods of silence, creates a whole new experience. It's like the difference between a generic action movie and a cinematic masterpiece. One is predictable and easily forgotten. The other lingers in your mind for days after you've watched it. A particularly powerful Stoic practice for the next 24 hours is what philosophers call amor fati, love of fate, or the complete acceptance of whatever happens. In practical terms, it means letting go of any rigid expectation about how she should act or feel. Many men fall into a destructive cycle of creating expectations, getting disappointed when those expectations aren't met, and then projecting that disappointment as insecurity or even resentment. Amor fati frees you from that trap. When you fully accept that she's free to feel how she wants, to respond however she chooses, you liberate yourself from the need for control. This inner freedom is immediately noticeable and highly attractive. It's the difference between a man who's constantly trying to manipulate his environment and one who flows with circumstances, adapting with grace and composure. Always remember, the goal here isn't to manipulate her into missing you. The goal is to become the kind of man whose absence is naturally felt. It's like the difference between trying to convince someone you're funny and simply being funny. One requires constant effort and rarely works. The other happens naturally and is genuinely appealing. Let's now discuss something many men completely overlook: the art of creating memorable experiences. Neuroscience teaches us that emotional memory is much more powerful than factual memory. In other words, people rarely remember exactly what you said, but they almost always remember how you made them feel. In the next 24 hours, focus on creating at least one experience that triggers a strong, positive emotion. It doesn't have to be grand or elaborate. It could be as simple as a deep conversation under the stars, a genuine laugh shared over a clever observation, or even a comfortable moment of silence where your connection transcends words. The secret is being fully present for that experience, attentive to all the sensory, emotional, and contextual details that make it special. When you create moments like that, you're literally engraving your presence into her emotional memory. And when you step away afterward, that memory continues to work in your favor, like an ember that keeps glowing even after the main fire has gone out. One powerful exercise is what I call emotional high contrast. It involves deliberately creating moments of high energy and excitement, followed by moments of deep calm and introspection. This alternation leads to a much richer, more memorable emotional experience than a monotonous single-note interaction. Imagine taking her on a lively walk, chatting enthusiastically about your passions and dreams, and then sitting quietly by a lake, sharing a contemplative silence. This type of emotional contrast creates a much more immersive, lasting experience than staying in one emotional state for the entire encounter. Now, a crucial element that many men ignore completely: the power of radical authenticity. The Stoics greatly valued the virtue of being true to your nature. In modern relationships, this means abandoning any attempt to be someone you're not. Inauthenticity, even when well-intentioned, sends subtle signals that are unconsciously picked up. Your tone of voice, body language, and speech patterns all reveal inconsistencies when you're trying to project a fabricated image. On the other hand, when you're entirely aligned with your genuine self, you radiate a coherence that's inexplicably compelling. Over the next 24 hours, practice radical authenticity. Express your real opinions, even if they're not popular. Share your true passions, even if they're not considered cool or impressive. Be honest about your values and principles, even if they go against the grain. This authenticity holds a magnetic power because it's so rare. In a world where most people constantly adjust their personalities to meet external expectations, someone who remains firmly anchored in their core essence stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. Another key Stoic principle you should apply is focusing on the greater good. The Stoics believed human beings are naturally inclined to live in community and contribute to collective well-being. In relationships, that translates into dropping the purely selfish mindset of, "What can I get from her?" and adopting a higher perspective. How can we both grow together? When you genuinely show that you care not only about your own desires and needs, but also about her well-being and growth, you create a much deeper, more meaningful connection. This doesn't mean subservience or putting her on a pedestal. It means recognizing that truly fulfilling relationships are those in which both parties elevate each other. Over the next 24 hours, practice what I call strategic generosity. Identify something valuable you can genuinely contribute to her life. Perhaps it's knowledge in an area you specialize in, a unique perspective on a challenge she's facing, or simply providing a safe space where she can express her thoughts and feelings without judgment. This strategic generosity fosters feelings of gratitude and appreciation that last well after you've gone. It's like planting a tree whose shade she'll continue to enjoy in your absence. And when you pair this generosity with the strategic detachment we talked about earlier, you create a powerfully attractive dynamic. Now, let's discuss a concept few men truly understand: the power of polarity. Pure masculine energy is directed, focused, and purposeful. When you fully embody this energy, you create a natural polarity with feminine energy, which tends to be more fluid, receptive, and expansive. Many men, trying to avoid seeming too assertive or overbearing, end up diluting their masculine energy and creating a confusing, unappealing dynamic. I'm not talking about stereotype-driven displays of tough guy behavior or dominance. I'm talking about fully embracing qualities like clarity, direction, purpose, and protection. Over the next 24 hours, practice what I call quiet leadership. This doesn't mean making every decision or controlling every interaction. It means creating a space of safety and trust in which she feels comfortable expressing her true nature. It means having clarity about your values and boundaries. It means taking responsibility for your words and actions. This quality of quiet, confident leadership is deeply attractive because it's so rare. In a world where many men either adopt an overly aggressive stance or abandon any form of direction altogether, someone who leads with calm confidence stands out immediately. A powerful exercise is practicing what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, anticipating hardships in your mind. This doesn't mean becoming a pessimist. It means being mentally prepared for different scenarios. In the context of relationships, it translates into letting go of the desperate need for everything to go exactly as planned. When you're ready to handle any situation, whether it's an awkward silence, a disagreement, or a canceled plan, you exude an unshakable confidence that's highly appealing. It's like the difference between a rookie captain who panics at the first sign of a storm and a seasoned captain who remains calm and focused, inspiring trust in everyone on board. Over the next 24 hours, practice detachment from outcomes. Be fully present in the process of interacting, without obsessing over where it's heading or what she might be thinking. Not only does this mindset drastically reduce your anxiety, it also creates an aura of mystery and self-assurance that's magnetically appealing. Always remember that the real power of Stoicism lies in transforming you from the inside out, not in manipulating others. When you consistently work on becoming more virtuous, more present, more authentic, and more resilient, you naturally become someone whose absence is felt. Not because you've created an unhealthy emotional dependency, but because your presence genuinely adds value to her life. Let's address something many men do incorrectly: trying to fill every empty space. Whether in conversation, where fear of silence leads to nervous chatter, or in digital communication, where anxiety leads to excessive, pointless texting, the Stoics understood the power of space, emptiness, and silence. Over the next 24 hours, practice what I call strategic space. In conversation, become comfortable with moments of silence, letting them breathe naturally instead of rushing to fill them. In digital communication, allow meaningful gaps that give curiosity and interest room to grow. This strategic space creates an emotional vacuum that naturally draws attention and interest. It's like the deliberate pause of a skilled speaker, Who knows silence can be more impactful than words? Or a talented musician who understands that the spaces between notes are just as important as the notes themselves. A crucial Stoic concept you should apply is ruthless focus on what's under your control. Epictetus divided everything into two categories: things we can control and things we can't. According to him, the only things truly under our control are our own actions, thoughts, and attitudes. In relationships, countless hours of energy are wasted trying to control or predict the other person's behavior, feelings, or decisions, all factors fundamentally outside our control. This futile attempt to control the uncontrollable doesn't just create constant anxiety, it also projects insecurity and neediness. Over the next 24 hours, practice focusing exclusively on what you can control, your own excellence. Concentrate on becoming the best possible version of yourself in every dimension: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. When you channel all your energy into your own development, you naturally become more attractive, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're genuinely dedicated to your own growth. This visible commitment to constant growth is incredibly appealing because it shows ambition, self-discipline, and an abundance mindset. It shows that you view life as a continuous journey of evolution, not a final destination to be reached. A powerful exercise is what I call an excellence inventory. Make an honest list of areas in your life that need improvement. Maybe it's your physical fitness, your knowledge in certain subjects, your social skills, your financial stability, or any other aspect you feel you could elevate. Then, create a clear and practical plan to systematically improve each of these areas. This renewed commitment to self-improvement not only enriches your own life, but also creates a far more interesting, appealing narrative. It's like the difference between a book with a single predictable storyline and one with multiple layers and surprising plot twists. One is quickly forgotten. The other continues to spark interest long after it's been closed. Now let's talk about another often overlooked Stoic principle: practical gratitude. The Stoics regularly practiced imagining everything that could go wrong, not to feed pessimism, but to cultivate deep appreciation for what they already had. In relationships, this translates into genuinely valuing the other person's presence and qualities without taking them for granted. Many relationships fizzle because both parties begin taking each other for granted, losing the ability to marvel at and appreciate the unique traits that initially attracted them. Over the next 24 hours, practice what I call specific appreciation. Instead of generic compliments like "you're amazing" or "you're beautiful," make genuine, detailed observations about the qualities or behaviors you truly appreciate in her. "I admire how calm you stay under pressure," or "it's really special how you actually listen when people talk." This specific appreciation shows that you're really paying attention, that you see beyond the surface. It's an acknowledgement of her individuality that creates a much deeper connection than generic praise that could apply to anyone. Combined with the strategic detachment mentioned earlier, this specific appreciation forms a powerful dynamic where she feels genuinely seen and valued when she's with you and misses that authentic acknowledgement when you're gone. A final Stoic principle you should apply is a commitment to truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The Stoics prized honesty above almost all else, even when the truth was painful or inconvenient. In modern relationships, this means dropping all games, manipulations, and half-truths that characterize so many interactions. Over the next 24 hours, practice radical honesty, especially when it's uncomfortable. If you're not interested in a serious relationship, say so openly rather than maintaining ambiguity to keep her around. If something she says or does bothers you, communicate it directly instead of storing up resentment or acting passive-aggressively. This radical honesty is surprisingly attractive in a world of evasive, ambiguous communication. Even if the truth isn't what she wants to hear, the integrity and courage it takes to speak it outright convey a strength of character that's deeply respectable. Combined with strategic generosity, specific appreciation, and emotional detachment. This radical honesty creates a presence so genuine and compelling that your absence is immediately felt. Not because you're using manipulation to foster emotional dependence, but because truly authentic and meaningful interactions are extraordinarily rare. And here's the fundamental paradox that few men grasp. The less you need her to feel complete, the more powerfully she'll be drawn to you. The more you cultivate a rich, meaningful life independent of any relationship, the more magnetic you become. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about genuinely valuing your own journey, your own dreams, your own projects. When you become the main character of your own life, you naturally become someone she chooses to be with, not out of need or dependence, but out of authentic desire and respect for who you are. In the next 24 hours, do an honest assessment of your life. Identify any areas where you might be overly focused on relationships at the expense of your own growth and development. Maybe you've neglected important friendships. Let go of beloved hobbies or shelved meaningful projects. Make a solid plan to revive those areas. This renewed commitment to your own path not only makes your life richer, it also creates a far more captivating and attractive storyline. It's like the difference between a movie with a single, predictable plot and one with multiple layers and fascinating twists. One is quickly forgotten, the other keeps people thinking long after the credits roll. In short, the secret to making her urgently seek you out within 24 hours isn't about manipulative techniques or psychological games. It's about the consistent application of Stoic principles: self-discipline, self-knowledge, focusing on what's within your control, detaching from outcomes, radical authenticity, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. When you embody these principles not as strategies to win her over, but as a life philosophy to become your best self, something remarkable happens. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract attention, but because you're genuinely evolving. And always remember, Stoicism isn't a philosophy of emotional indifference or coldness, as some mistakenly believe. It's a philosophy of well-directed emotions, meaningful connections, and a life lived with purpose and virtue. When applied to relationships, its principles not only make her miss you when you're gone, but also build the foundation for much deeper, more authentic, and lasting connections when you're present. So, in the next 24 hours, commit to your own evolution. Practice strategic detachment, radical presence, vulnerability from a place of strength, authentic generosity, quiet leadership, and honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. Not because it'll make her come running, though that's very likely to happen, but because it will transform you into the kind of man who naturally attracts high-quality connections into his life. Real transformation doesn't happen overnight, but these principles, when consistently applied over time, create a presence so magnetic and an absence so striking that you literally become unforgettable. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Prepare your mind, strengthen your character, raise your standards, and watch how the world around you starts to respond in a completely different way. What we're discussing here goes far beyond superficial seduction tactics. We're talking about a profound shift that changes how you relate to yourself and, consequently, how others relate to you. This is the real alchemy of relationships, transforming your very essence so that your presence becomes valuable and your absence impossible to ignore. Think back on your past interactions, the times you may have shown neediness or felt anxious for a response, or rearranged your schedule hoping for a spontaneous meeting. Now, imagine a version of yourself so committed to your own personal mission, so focused on your growth, and so comfortable in your own skin that those worries simply fade away. In the next 24 hours, start implementing these principles and watch carefully what happens. Not with anxious expectation, but with the calm curiosity of a scientist observing an experiment. You might notice, for the first time, how your internal energy directly affects the way people respond to you. And when she does seek you out, which is very likely, welcome it not as external validation that you won, but as a natural confirmation that you're on the right path of your own evolution. Because ultimately, the goal isn't just making her miss you, it's becoming the kind of man who naturally inspires interest, respect, and admiration. Stoicism teaches us that true freedom comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from mastering our internal responses. When you free yourself from the desperate need for approval and validation, you paradoxically become far more appealing and magnetic. It's as though the universe responds to your self-sufficiency with abundance, to your independence with deeper connections, to your authenticity with more genuine relationships. This journey we're proposing is not easy. It requires courage to face your insecurities, discipline to stay focused on what truly matters, and wisdom to discern what is and isn't under your control. But the results, in the quality of both your relationships and your life as a whole, are incomparable. So the next time you feel the urge to check whether she read your message, to send yet another text, just to keep in touch, or to cancel your plans hoping to see her, pause and breathe. Remember the principles we've discussed. Shift your focus back to your own path, your own projects, your own evolution, and trust that by doing so, you are becoming naturally more magnetic and alluring. As a result of consistent practice, you'll create a paradoxical effect. The less you chase, the more you're pursued. The less you cling, the more people crave your presence. The more you focus on yourself, the more intriguing you become to others. That's the real power of Stoicism in relationships, not as a manipulative tactic, but as a life-changing philosophy. So start now. In the next 24 hours, be the man who fully inhabits his own life, who walks his path with purpose, who gives genuine value without expecting anything in return, and observe how she will almost inevitably miss you in a way she never has before. Not because of dependence or manipulation, but because she truly admires and wants to be part of the extraordinary journey that is your life.